Well, Tether FUD is back in the forefront again. Let's talk about a little bit of the Tether history and see if we can get a good understanding of what it's all about and why we have all this negativity starting to bubble up to the surface again. What is up, gang? It is I, Carlton Flowers, your crypto pro.
Yay!
And we are going to be talking about the news today as it relates to Tether. Now, before we begin, all of this is my opinion and just a little bit of information from what I could dig up as I have been trying to research the background of Tether for the past several weeks. I've been promising to do a series talking about Tether, and I've been very busy, but we're going to start out right now just giving a brief overview of Tether and why we have FUD that is bubbling back up to the surface. So, of course, as usual, this is definitely not financial advice. Do your own due diligence and don't depend on anyone else's research to make decisions on jumping into this crazy market. Well, first of all, what is Tether? It is a stable coin pegged to the US dollar, and it has a certain use case. Tether makes it easier for people to jump in and out of Bitcoin or other altcoins. Tether is a very important stablecoin to exchanges and market makers. And the reason is, when you are an exchange, a centralized exchange, and you are a market maker, in other words, you're making it possible for people to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. Whenever you are buying and selling Bitcoin using the United States dollar, it takes a little bit longer to be able to jump in and out and cash out your money. And it also makes it to where there are different rules that apply when you're selling your Bitcoin for USD and you're making capital gains. And then here's another reason why stablecoins are so useful. Let's say the market is declining. Let's say Bitcoin is at 20,000 and we start to slide. Well, when you have a Tether coin, you can sell your Bitcoin into Tether and let it sit there and not decline in value, and then jump right back in and purchase the Bitcoin at a low point. And then you're not triggering any taxable events. So it's very convenient for people to use Tether to jump in and out, especially those that are doing day trading. Now, as far as a centralized exchange is concerned, if they want to jump into the service of allowing people to buy and sell Bitcoin, well, they've got to have something to start with in order for people to trade. If I start the Crypto Pro Exchange and I throw a bunch of trading pairs up there, let's say I want to give you the ability to buy Bitcoin. Well, I've got to have some in the first place. And then whenever you sell Bitcoin, I've got to convert that to cash and send that back to you. So exchanges have got to have a big bag of Bitcoin and other coins in order to provide liquidity. In other words, when you sell your coins, you want to be able to allow people to get in and out. You want to give them their Bitcoin right away. And when they cash out, you want to give them their cash. Well, you would have to start small if you're not a big, rich, fat cat that owns thousands of Bitcoins. So one way to get your foot in the door as a market maker is to use Tether. And what Tether does, they provide an exchange with the power of liquidity. So in other words, let's say an exchange wants to start up and they don't have a lot of funds, but they want to be able to allow people to rapidly buy and sell Bitcoin. So they approach Tether and say, hey, we need some of your fantastic Tether tokens for liquidity purposes. We'd like to start out with 1 million Tether coins. And so then Tether says, all right, well, we can give you that. And Tether is backed 1-to-1 by the US dollar. It really isn't, but we'll get into that in a minute. And so one sneaky way that the exchange can get started in providing lots of liquidity is to borrow that Tether and then pay it back after it has been traded out. So what's in it for the exchange? It's the fees they charge for trading. They might charge 0.5% or 1% or 2% every time somebody buys or sells a cryptocurrency. But they've got to have the liquidity to be able to do that. So if you got a big fat pile of Tether, let's say you've got 1 million Tether, you could do a lot more volume. So then those little 1% fees, 2% fees will add up a lot quicker than if you started out with just, say, the $100,000 that you've got in your bank account. So that's the motivation to exchanges, market makers, to borrow large amounts of Tether so they can make a lot more money. Now, going back to the basics, Tether started out where they said that we are a stable coin that is backed 1-to-1 with the US dollar. In other words, for every one Tether coin, there's $1 to back it up. Well, as time went on, we found out that they weren't backing every Tether coin with $1. And they also have never been audited by the United States. Now, in a later video, I'll talk about when the state of New York jumped all over Tether and the bank that they do their liquidity from. And the state of New York accused them of not keeping proper accounting and backing Tether 1-to-1 with the US dollar. Well, their answer was, we have commercial paper. In other words, we have investments. And at the time when they were first jumped on by the state of New York, they said, well, 30% of Tether is backed by US dollars and the other 70% is commercial paper. Well, then the question was, what's commercial paper? Well, the answer, we have investments, we have stocks, we have bonds, we have treasury bills, and we have real estate investments. In other words, paper that says we have ownership in companies that buy and sell real estate. So we had a big wave of FUD when we found out that it was possible that Tether was heavily invested into the Chinese developer, if you remember what company that was on the verge of bankruptcy. And so people wondered, how can you be 1-to-1 backed if part of your commercial paper is invested into failing companies? Okay, so moving right along. Right now, today, it is said that only 2.9% of Tether is backed up by the US dollar. Now, that's really interesting. So at this moment, Tether's market capitalization is over $70 billion. So take 2.9% of 70 billion, and that's how much in USD that they have backing up the stable coin. Now, Tether has been growing like crazy, exponential growth over the past few years. And does that pose a threat to the crypto market? Well, yes, it does, if they can't back up their holdings. Could there be a run on Tether? Well, if they're invested into commercial paper, of course there could be. Will it happen? I don't know. Because a lot of that commercial paper is tied up in investments in the U.S., like U.S. bonds, treasury notes, junk bonds, and a run on Tether would cause a negative impact on the United States. But here's the thing. With this 2.9% backing, all right, let's talk about where the rest of their investments come from, and then also some of the problems that we see with Tether right now holding the line and not becoming insolvent. Well, a few of the problems. Right now, Tether has no transparency. They have no regulation, and there's no stopping them from printing tokens. So as this relates to the commercial paper that backs it, if I want to start an exchange today, I could say, hey, Tether, loan me 100 million Tether tokens, and I'll pay you back after I make a ton of money on my trading fees. And they say, sure, we're going to do that, and we're going to allow you to write us an IOU. So I write up an IOU, make a contract, and give them that IOU. Well, guess what? That's commercial paper. So they can claim that the 100 million Tether tokens that they printed for me before they're burned, while they're being used, it's backed by my guarantee to pay it back. So I'm supposed to go make my money, and when I'm done, then I pay all that back and they burn the tokens. But that's not very stable of a backing. Now, is it? Because what if I go bankrupt? Well, the 100 million Tether tokens are still out there floating around, and I have no ability to repay the loan. What else do we have? Well, the $1 value of Tether is perceived value only. It's trust in the Tether brand. Since it's only backed by 2.9% of USD, the only reason why we will trade $1 of Tether for $1 of Bitcoin or any other crypto is because we believe it has value. Now, the day could come that everyone loses their faith in Tether and they don't believe that the value is $1. And that's where we could have a problem. But since it is so intertwined in the crypto market, a lot of people have faith in the value that it is supposed to have. Now, something else that is very interesting that people don't realize, Tether is not a binding contract regarding redeemability. In other words, it's not guaranteed by the United States and it's not guaranteed by Tether. Tether is owned by an offshore company, and nowhere in their terms of service does it state that we guarantee you that you'll get your $1 back if you buy a one Tether token and you want to redeem it. In fact, they go on to say that they reserve the right to allow you to redeem your Tether token by paying you in other terms. Instead of a US dollar, they could give you $1 worth of Ethereum or $1 worth of Solana or anything that they choose. That's right there in their terms of service. So moving right along, it was recently reported that Tether is backed by short-term treasury bills and also junk bonds. So we've got government-issued debt. In other words, the United States government will say, hey, I'm going to write you this note, a bond, which says we're in bondage to you to pay this back. And there's nothing backing it other than the good faith of the United States in paying it back. So part of the Tether tokens being backed comes from the make-believe note written by the U.S. government in giving a treasury bill. Now, that kind of makes you scratch your head, doesn't it? Now, we know that the U.S. government prints money on a daily basis, but at least of all of the Tether tokens out there, if it's backed by this fiat currency, that's better than just a great big old note written from the government in a treasury bill. Okay, moving right along. So the commercial paper that Tether claims to be backed, it could include loans giving to clients who need the USDT for liquidity, in addition to the short-term treasury bills, in addition to the junk bonds, in addition to the investments in shady real estate developments like the one that we all know about in China. So it could be that something could shake the market and cause a run on Tether. It is possible. So thus far, there's never been an audit of the Tether books. And the co-founder, Phil Potter, claims that they are constantly looking for solutions to be more transparent, but auditors just don't want to work with them. So they lay the blame on us for not being willing to work with them. So that's how they duck and dodge the audit that is necessary, and we can't do much about it because it's an offshore bank that is behind Tether. And I'm going to talk about that offshore bank in the next video of the USDT series, because that bank is tied to some other big time con artists, scam artists. Think scam and take the C out, and you could fill in the blanks and know who I'm talking about. And we're going to discuss that. This small little bank that is down in the Bahamas that the company Bitfinex has been using in order to avoid the U.S. banking laws. And this is why the state of New York Attorney General came after Tether a couple of years ago. Well, that's all for now. We're going to just take this one step at a time, and I'll keep you posted, and we'll keep our eyes peeled. And in the meantime, be careful how much Tether you leave sitting around. If you can put it into something that is more stable like USDT or USDC rather, that might be a wise move. If you've got to use it, it's best to move in and out of it in a quick manner and not let it sit around. Because if you get caught while Tether gets attacked and goes on a run, you could end up losing your money. So that's all we've got for now. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with the next report on the Tether FUD. This is Carlton, and I am out.